Welcome to VRD History, where we dive into the research and development that defined the icons of motorsport. In 1982, a 23-year-old aeronautical graduate was handed a career-ending disaster. He was told to take a heavy rejected chassis that BMW had utterly abandoned and turn it into a giant killer. The budget? Virtually non-existent. Wind tunnel time? Zero. But while Formula One was actively banning ground effect aerodynamics over in Europe due to safety concerns, America's IMSA championship had accidentally left a massive loophole wide open in their rulebook. This is the untold history of how the greatest mind in modern motorsport used a bizarre, lobster claw design drawn completely by eye to spark an aerodynamic revolution and dominate American racing before F1 even knew his name. Before the dominance, there was failure. In 1981, March Engineering built a sports prototype for BMW called the M1C. It was experimental, draggy, and unstable at high speeds. Fed up with the lack of results, BMW pulled the plug and walked away. March was left with the skeletal remains of an aluminium honeycomb monocoque and a massive financial deficit. They couldn't afford to design a new car from scratch. Instead, they handed the project to their newest, youngest employee, Adrian Newey. He was a one-man engineering department facing down the factory might of Porsche and Jaguar. To beat them, he couldn't just copy them. He had to outthink them. He had to look under the car. This is where Newey's aeronautical background changed sports car racing forever. IMSA's GTP rules allowed massive, unrestricted Venturi tunnels running along the bottom of the car from the front axle all the way to the rear bumper. Together with aerodynamicist Max Sardou, Newey realized that the secret to maximizing ground effects wasn't at the back of the car, it was at the front. They designed a radical, gaping void right between the front wheels. The paddock instantly mocked it, labeling it the lobster claw. But that open nose wasn't for cooling. It was a massive aerodynamic funnel. By feeding high-velocity, undisturbed air directly into the cavernous underbody, Venturi tunnels, the car acted like an upside-down aeroplane wing. The faster it went, the harder the atmosphere sucked it to the tarmac. The true genius of this design? March had no money for a moving ground wind tunnel. Newey literally sculpted the curvature of these massive underbody tunnels completely by eye, relying entirely on his intuitive understanding of fluid dynamics. The mockery in the paddock lasted exactly until the 1982 Daytona 24 Hours. On his competitive debut, Newey's by-eye creation shocked the motorsports world by qualifying dead on pole position. By 1983, Newey refined the details into the March 83G. Legendary American racer Al Holbert bought the chassis, stuffed a turbocharged Porsche engine into the back of Newey's modular engine bay, and went on an absolute rampage. The March 83G won the Daytona 24 Hours outright and clinched the 1983 IMSA GTP championship. Privateer teams realized that Newey hadn't just built a fast car, he had built a stable one. Ground effect cars of the era were notoriously peaky and dangerous. If the nose pitched under braking, the downforce would suddenly vanish. But Newey's wide entry funnel design made the airflow incredibly forgiving for privateer drivers. In 1984, Randy Lanier backed it up, taking a Chevy-powered March 84G to a consecutive championship title. Long before Adrian Newey became the mastermind behind Williams' active suspension tech, McLaren's title winners, or Red Bull's modern F1 dynasties, he was a 23-year-old kid figuring out how to manipulate invincible air currents under an American sports car. The lessons learned on the lobster claw laid the foundation for a philosophy that would go on to yield over 20 Formula One World Championships. He didn't need a multi-million-dollar laboratory. He just needed a loophole, a pencil, and an eye for the air. If you want to dive deeper into the hidden engineering stories that shaped motorsport history, subscribe to VRD History. See you in the next breakdown.